Season 3, Episode 3. Let's do this. So fun fact, I'm about this far through my reread of The Fires of Heaven, which I'm glad I decided to do, because we open with a scene this episode straight out of The Fires of Heaven, the Forsaken secret meeting, minus a few people. I think in the books, Graendal was there and Moghedien was not there. We see Lanfear meeting with Lord Gabriel, aka Ravine. So I'm glad we revealed that he is in fact evil this early on, because yeah, I had a real hard time keeping my cool so I didn't spoil everything for my husband when we were watching together. We also got the Samael reveal that we've been teased with finally, so super stoked to also see him. And then they did name drop again Graendal and Samaraj, so I think at this point we have seen all of the female Forsaken lineup revealed, and this leaves me even more curious as to who our final male Forsaken is going to be. Let me know what your predictions are. I mean, we could still get Asmodean as like a secret Forsaken that they haven't teased us with at all at this point. I didn't know if we were gonna get Ravin, but Gabriel's here, so we definitely have Ravin in the picture now, which was another one that, like, yeah, we really didn't get any tease or lead up to until he showed up this season, which was exciting. So at this point, I'm thinking it's gotta be either Asmodean or Demandred. I love that Samael not only has his Illianer garb on to go with his Illianer accent, just like Bael Domon and others whom we've seen from that area, but he's also got his giant ass facial scar, which is a nod to his backstory from the Age of Legends, where I believe it was Lews Therin Telamon himself who gave Samael that scar, and this is the Age of Legends we're talking about, so anything and everything can be healed. He could have just completely gotten rid of that scar, but no, he chose to keep it as a reminder of how much he hates Lews Therin Telamon. I don't know if anyone's seen my Forsaken class superlatives breakdown that I did, where I went through all of the book Forsaken and listed their basic traits and what yearbook class superlative I would have voted them for. Several of the male Forsaken are vying for the title of president of the Lews Therin Telamon Haters Club, and pretty much only joined the dark side because of how much they hated and felt thwarted by Lews Therin. So yeah, love to see that happening here. I love to see him mocking Lanfear and being like, oh, Lews Therin, and how, yeah, mocking her for how much she's just besotted by Lews Therin, and kind of in a lot of ways she thinks she's this master manipulator in control and pulling his strings, but she's like a little bit blinded by her own love for him in a lot of ways. I'm really curious as to what culture his Illianer costume is based on, and I even went back and watched the X-ray behind the scenes video where they talked about the costume making process, because they had a whole map laid out of all the different costume inspirations for the different lands of Randland, and I believe it says here, from what I was able to decipher, that Ilion is based on Italy, but I also saw a little bit of Chinese, ancient imperial Chinese in his outfit, which makes sense because Ilion is kind of bordering Tyr, and Tyr is based on very much Southeast Asia and Cambodia, but it says that there's also a little Spanish mixed in on their map, which I think from the description in this book that I read of Illianer fashion would definitely be more emphasized in the women's fashion, because it says that Illianer men wear high collars, only beards only, no mustaches, and they're known for wearing fancy boots with gold or silver trim or embroidery. And so I think we definitely saw that with his boots, but then yeah, definitely more European military in the jacket, but then with some kind of gold overlay that was giving Chinese to me for some reason. Yeah, I loved Lanfear's costume with the pointy lapels on her jacket that looked like horns, because she's evil and she's horny. And then I also really liked Ravin's Forsaken look because I think the actor is Spanish, and it was definitely giving like Matador Royal Spanish couture look. I like that we get the term nameless mentioned here, which is the title given to the leader or highest among the Forsaken. I like that we finally got gateways outright shown, so I'm hoping that will come into play even further if things from Shadow Rising / Fires of Heaven play out like they're supposed to. I really thought it was interesting that, you know, after everyone else leaves and Moghedien comes out from the shadows like she's wont to do and has been eavesdropping this whole time on Lanfear's plan to try to make an alliance with the other Forsaken to take out Moghedien. Probably because Moghedien's been the one most overtly saying like, no, I'm going after Rand and everybody, and like Lanfear wants Rand to herself. So she's definitely trying to get everyone to be on team convert Rand rather than team kill Rand, which was accurate to how their meeting went in the book. She's trying to get everyone to just keep, trying to turn Rand to the shadow rather than just outright try to go after him and kill him because she wants Rand alive for her own reasons. But Moghedien says that Lanfear's playing the same game that she did last time, and she's not gonna do that. And then also I was like really shocked and confused that they're finally giving us the full show intro in episode 3. I was like, oh, really? Now? You're gonna give it to us now? But I know people were going back and forth on if they liked it or not. Personally, I was like, I'm okay with cutting it. I think I had said this in my rewatch videos, but then ended up cutting it. I actually do like the intro that they did for the Wheel of Time. I had complained that a lot of TV shows were trying to, being the next Game of Thrones, craft these big, long, drawn-out, elaborate CGI intros with dramatic music, and it's not always necessary. Even though in the case of the Wheel of Time, I really do like the intro, and I think it does a lot to just kind of give us a sense of Randland, the world of the Wheel of Time, and the cosmology of it, with the threads weaving into the pattern, but then also showing us the different Ajas and presenting this women-forward culture where women are in charge. But if it's the choice between that or a couple more minutes of story and plot time, then I will gladly cut it. But I know a lot of people also, did really like the intro, so don't mind seeing it. We see that they do have the 2 Black Aja captive, just like they do in the Shadow Rising, only in this case it's in the tower and not Tyr. But it is Joya the Grey and Amiko a Yellow, who have now been stilled. Nynaeve and Elaine now being, recruited to the hunt, and of the few that Swan can trust, are sent in to try to interrogate them, which, don't get me wrong, Nynaeve and Elaine are very strong and strong-minded, strong-willed in their own right, can both be equally ruthless in their own right, especially after seeing last episode with the Camlin cold open, just how ruthless the people Elaine has been raised by are. It might still be a little bit intimidating to suddenly be thrust in with these dark friend, full Aes Sedai women who are a lot more experienced in the power, and even though Nynaeve is a wisdom and a position of authority, and Elaine is daughter heir and has been trained in diplomacy and things like this, Aes Sedai live a long time, so these women could literally be old enough to be their grandmother, if not older, so they just have a lot of experience under their belts as well. So we kind of see the 2 trying to play a little good cop, or bad cop here. But eventually Amiko reveals that the Black Aja is set up in hearts of 3 sisters each, and even they don't know who all of the other members of the other hearts are, so it's all kept very cordoned off and on a need-to-know basis, even from each other. That way, if one person goes down, they literally can't out everybody. But that does mean that there are going to be secret Black Aja members still lurking in the tower. But she also says that Liandrin and company are going to Tyr. So another little name drop there at book plot things, and to, supposedly maybe help one of the Forsaken try to take Kalendor, but likely to try to lure them to Tyr in a trap. Then Joya, on the other hand, says that they are in Saldaea to find the false dragon, Mazrim Taim. So we're finally getting a Mazrim Taim name drop, which is, along with Gareth Bryn, probably the other person who I was most curious to see if we were gonna get in the show, because he doesn't play a huge role in the end, but he does have like a really important role that severely impacts the storyline in the later novels and toward the end of the series. And I, for one, am really curious to see if they're going to go so far as to try and give us Tame Mandred. Because if you're an OG book reader like me, you know, like I said, if there was one thing us Wheel of Time fans like to do, it is speculate. Since they have, you know, derivated so much from the book plots in some ways and introduced new plots in others, it is still leaving even us book readers with a lot of room for speculation. So I'm really curious to see if not only the final Forsaken we are going to get for the male Forsaken is going to be Demandred, because he really doesn't show up a whole lot in the novels, but he just is kind of this really big looming presence the whole time. There's a lot of build up to Demandred. There was also a lot of hints and red herrings as to whether or not Demandred was Mazrim Taim, or, you know, Mazrim Taim was secretly Demandred in disguise, which ended up not being the case. But if they really want to do something crazy and maybe like simplify and streamline things and make things not too complicated with too many characters, that is one way they can do it, is by giving us Tame Andred. So let me know, book readers, what you think about that possibility. In the next scene with like Elida having this sudden weird spasm thing, that wasn't something I think we saw in the books, so I'm really curious to see what they're throwing that in for and what the setup and payoff is going to be with that. But we also do see that Min has conveniently been planted as her White Tower servant / spy. Elaine and Nynaeve thankfully do know that both Joya and Amiko are being pretty sus and pretty cagey and obviously giving them two different answers. So they go to Leandrin's former Tar Valon hideout where she was keeping her son to try to look for clues, and conveniently find a mysterious symbol on the floor, all Katrina Van Tassel Sleepy Hollow style. What does it mean? And interesting, they take a beat here for Nynaeve to acknowledge that Leandrin has been maybe trying to help her in some ways, even though she was working for the Dark. She was very interested in Nynaeve, certainly from the get-go, because Nynaeve was a powerful channeler, and I think she hoped that maybe if she could befriend Nynaeve early on, she could nudge Nynaeve not only to the Red Aja, but maybe also the Black Aja. I think Nynaeve sees it as like, well, she pushed me. She pushed me to stay and learn to channel Sidar, because otherwise she probably, she wasn't really about the Aes Sedai agenda or Moraine's agenda or the White Tower agenda, and like didn't trust any of them from the get-go. So they really needed a way to try to tie her to the tower and make her stay as this powerful channeler that they wanted to recruit. And so she's maybe a little bit grateful that Leandrin did kind of like weirdly mentor her in a way. And aside from, you know, the whole being a Black Aja dark friend, did kind of keep it real with her in other ways about the realities of, you know, White Tower politics and things like that, and how she needed to be strong and learn to defend herself. Then we move on to a hilarious scene where Elida tries to square up to Leon and Varen to get a one-on-one meeting with the Amerlin and is denied. And it descends into an all-out Aes Sedai shade-throwing match.
Aes Sedai, what could have possibly brought you to these high chambers? A fire in the library? A sweet cake shortage in the kitchen?
Oh, Mother's in her study.
Then I formally request a private audience with the Amelin seat.
Only a sitter in the hall of the tower has the right to request a private audience or a vote. Is that right, Liana? Bit rusty on my tower procedures. Yes, I'm sure you must be too, Elida Sedai, after so long away.
And she, interestingly, in front of Lyanna the Keeper, warns Varen to her face not to cross her or she will regret it. Just like we saw with that cold open in Caemlyn where she was crowning Morgase Queen of... We are seeing a very, like, ruthless person. She's trying to make moves in the tower already to get what she wants. And so then she's also trying to make moves in the Red Aja quarters by basically bribing the highest, which is the title of the Red Aja leader, and each Aja has their own title for their Aja leader. So the highest rejects her gifts with even more shade. But before she leaves, she reminds the highest that this is their time to shine because the dragon has been proclaimed and he is still a man who can channel, and that is their purpose in life, is to take charge of men who can channel. It's their time to lead within the tower, and that they must take a group of Reds to find Rand al'Thor and cage him immediately. Foreshadowing. This also conveniently ends up being a way of getting the current highest out of the tower so that she can take her place and be a sitter in the hall with the right to meet privately with the Amerlin that was denied her. She also seems to be aligning herself with Galena among the Reds, so keep that in mind for later. But before she leaves, or is rather dismissed from the Red Aja quarters, she takes the time to remind everyone that the highest not only let herself be locked out of the hall but when everything went down with Liandrin, but she therefore is losing standing for and among the Reds. So I'm really curious to see if Galena, who, spoilers, is a dark friend, will see this as an opportunity to align herself with Elaida and thereby sow some dissent, some further dissent within the tower and against Swan in particular. So then we switch to Rand and everyone in the Waste, and he's talking to Ruark, which I love to see. And then I also really like to see Bear tell Egwene, like, no girl, I was not in your dreams last night, you were in mine. Dreamwalker alert. And we see them stumble across the crime scene where a bunch of Tinkers, or Tuatha'an, have been mercilessly slaughtered. And Ruark says that the Aiel would never do this to the Tinkers. You know, they have special privileges to move around in the Waste. Avienda notes that the only thing more dishonorable than not defending yourself is killing someone who won't defend themselves. And there's a lot of speculation about who's responsible for this. They're trying to say, like, this is clearly a sword wound. You know, only barbarian sword wielders would do something like this. But Lan says, no, it could be a spear wound trying to look like a sword wound. Which is when we then get the info drop that while Aiel would never, the Shido clan might be responsible because they have a blood feud with Ruark's clan, the Tardad. Then we move back to the Two Rivers, where in this beautiful scene among the apple blossoms, Perrin is symbolically burying his wife's wedding ring at her grave, showing us and him that we are all ready to officially move on from this storyline and make way for Fael. But I just had to take a moment to say kudos to Perrin / the actor Marcus in this scene, because when I said last recap that everyone's really stepping up their acting game this season, I really noted it here with him in particular, and I was hoping that, you know, with Perrin being such a major player in the Shadow Rising and the Battle for the Two Rivers, that this was going to be part of his redemption arc in the show and just getting to be featured more and have more to do character arc-wise. And we're really seeing it here in this scene where something with, like, his mannerisms and his line delivery, talking to Alana about grief and losing loved ones. It was giving me Travis Fimmel, Ragnar Lothbrok in Vikings vibes. So that's the caliber of acting that we're talking about here. He also, interestingly, asks her if she's going to bond a new order now. So, foreshadowing. File that away for later. But Alana reminds us here that the warder she lost was the one that she and Maxim both loved more out of the throuple. So now they're kind of both stuck together with each other when they lost the person that they both liked the most. He only became her warder because he loved Ivan, and Ivan became her warder. So he was just kind of along for the ride, and now they're both stuck together, bonded for life in this grief feedback loop, feeling each other's emotions. They're in a glass case of emotion. But I like that we get a little comedic break here where we see that Bane and Chiad are bored back at the inn and trying to get Loyal to play Maiden's Kiss. And then they also try to get Maxim to play Maiden's Kiss, but he's still mourning. And then, holy shit, I did not expect it to happen so soon or so casually, but Lord Luke appears and reveals that Matt's family has been captured by the White Cloaks. And I like that Perrin's like, Lord Luke? Lord of what exactly? Lord Luke mentions that he is a hunter of the Horn who just happened to be here when everything went down, and Fael is just there as part of his entourage as a fellow horn hunter. So I'm really curious to see if they're supposed to be, she in particular, are red herring dark friends to throw us off of Alana being dark friends, or vice versa. Because Lord Luke in the novel is like definitely evil. And like I said last episode recap, this show has really been trying to make Alana super sus this whole time. And we see that true to his book status, Dane Bornhold is drinking on the job now. Standards are going downhill ever since his dad died, and he has got a personal vendetta against Perrin now for that, and has the coffins in a cage as bait for Perrin, but draws the line at letting Valda question them for now. No Padan Fain yet. I'm expecting him to show up any moment now as Ordis, because in the novels he's tagging along with the White Cloaks now and trying to, stick them on the two rivers and there with the Trollocs for his own reasons, corrupting everybody. Elaine and Nynaeve conveniently happen to find a book showing that Leandrin's mysterious symbol they found on the floor is from Tanchico. And that's when they also are going through Varen's research papers / catalog of everything that was stolen from the 13th Depository, all the Angreal and Terangreal. That's when they also find out that the Black Aja stole an old Adam bracelet and are therefore probably looking for the matching collar before they are attacked by a gray man too in the tower, just at that very moment when they come out and find him stabbed so that he can't talk. Varen comes across them, which is different from the novels where it's Sheriam, the mistress of novices, who comes across them, and it makes them very sus of Varen, perhaps for good reason. If you know, you know. In this case, she's like, I mean, you're the ones who are rifling around my papers in my room in the Brown Aja quarters, so what are you girls doing here? Nothing comes of that for now. Then we cut to Tanchico, where Leandrin has her red wedding homecoming sleigh. And I can definitely see why she might have been motivated to join the Red Aja, man-hating Aja, because fuck child brides. I love that she starts immediately slipping back into her Tanchican accent to mirror the guys in that scene. So she's definitely very triggered, I think, if she's slipping back into an accent she hasn't had since childhood. But even though we see her trying to be very caring toward the girl in this red wedding moment, her form of being caring is to let Naomi, the brown sister, obliviate her. In the next scene, they did not waste any time in having Elida immediately call Min out on both being a spy and a seer. I'm wondering if Moraine was the blue sister who told her to watch who was placed in her and under her service, because Moraine, after all, is from Kyrian, where they play the game of houses and do that kind of shit. So she would be the one used to and would know that servants can be spies. But I like that they did take it as this scene as an opportunity for her to reveal her foretelling that we hear about in The Shadow Rising about how the royal line of Andor is going to be crucial or key somehow to winning the last battle. So that's why she aligned herself with Andor so early on in her career as an Aes Sedai, even to the point of giving up her role as the leader of the Red Aja and potential next Amyrlin seat. And she also reveals that she plans to call a vote in the hall to find and cage Rand. We switch back to the Aiel Waste, where Bear tells Egwene that she is a dreamwalker and says that a dream person should not be able to leave IRL wounds on her in the waking world like that. And so therefore, whoever is doing this to her in her dreams every night can't be the ghost of Rena. It has to be a fellow dreamer. Gee, who could it be? Who could be someone adept in the world of dreams who would have it out for Egwene? I wonder. Because then we switch immediately to Rand and Lanfear canoodling, or at least, meeting in secret in Talaran Riyadh in a replica of her Celine's inn back in Cairhien. And here she hints that she's glad he decided not to go to Tyr for Calendar after all, because it may be a trap in more ways than one. We know later on that it is a trap for a man to wield Calendar, because I believe the trap is that, yes, only a man can wield it, but he can only wield it if it's in a link with women and women are controlling the link. So it's a trap in that way, and just going to Tyr to try to get Calendar is a trap, because the Forsaken are going to be lying in wait for him to go there and do that. But she says here that, with what's supposed to be in the books the Choden Call, but here has been adapted to be Calendar for men and Sakarnen for women, the two most powerful male and female Angreal, that she/they could maybe even kill the Dark One and free her from her dark oaths so that they could be together. Oh, maybe after like 3,000 years, and being the first one to sign up for Team Dark One and join the Forsaken, and being the only Forsaken to even choose her own name and call herself Lanfear. But maybe she has regrets now, and maybe after all this time she loves Rand so much that she's willing to break her oaths and be free so they can just go be together. That's all she wants. In case you couldn't tell by my rampant sarcasm, I ain't buying it. But I love the scene then that we get with the Aiel sweat tents and just the nod to Aiel culture, because they live in a desert. They don't have water to waste on bathing, so this is how they bathe. And it's also a thing from Roman culture, and gladiators would take sweat and oil baths, and then just you scrape everything off you with a tool. Moiraine and Lan are with the wise ones in the sweat tents, and she's trying to get them to tell her the purpose of Ruidian. I love that we see here that some of the Aiel have Irish accents, since I said in one of my breakdown videos that the Aiel/Tinkers are based on Irish traveler culture. So I think that's, a nod to their book origins and cultural roots. And then we see Melindra appears, and I was wondering where she was going to fit in the show, because in The Fires of Heaven, she shows up here as a Maiden of the Spear who hooks up with Matt and ends up being a dark friend, because she is revealed to be Shido. And here we're already establishing that the Shido are some not so good guys among the Aiel. Here she appears, and she is a Malkieri survivor to tempt Lan. But I like that we get a little moment between her and him where she calls him Anna Lane. I was really yeah, they did the thing, they said it. She said it because I've been saying this whole time that I've been wanting to get more of Lan's backstory and just like the notoriety he has amongst his peers and even amongst the Aiel that we saw in the Shadow Rising, where he has a reputation even amongst this elite warrior culture of being an elite warrior, and they call him A'an Elaine, which means like one alone or a man alone, because he's like the sole survivor of his people. So yeah, like that, we got that little name drop and nod there. And another nice little nod slash name drop slash appeasing us book fans that we've been clamoring for all this time. We switch back to Perrin in Emond's Field, arguing with some of the villagers, in particular Ken Bowie, who is just like the notorious curmudgeon of the Two Rivers, and people were mad that we didn't get him in season 1, so now we got our Ken Bowie. Are you happy now? Okay. But the Emond's Fielders are loyal and stubborn, and they got the blood of Manetheren running through their veins, and they won't let Perrin give himself up. Even though, unlike in the novels, in the show, Perrin's case, he really did just outright murder that White Cloak dude. We then see the very much strained relationship between Alana and her one remaining warder. She had said in the previous season that she used to always mask the bond between him and her, since he wasn't really there for her. They were both there for Ivan, and so she kind of did him a favor by masking their bond most of the time. But now she's only got one warder, they're in a dangerous situation, possibly gearing up for battle in the Two Rivers, if not the last battle. So she's had to turn their bond back on, and he just cannot take it. He cannot handle the emotional feedback loop, and even accuses her of not grieving the lost warder enough. But she's like, I'm just trying to keep a hold on my emotions because I'm too busy getting caught up in your emotions. And even he asks her why the fuck they're in the Two Rivers in the first place. So even he doesn't know why they're there. And in the novels, like, her and Varen were both there under the cover of looking for more strong female channelers like Egwene and Nynaeve. But we don't know her supposed reason for being here. I really like what we've seen of Faile so far. Her portrayal and her attitude, especially toward Perrin, is just really on point. I love the scene between them here, where she tries to give him the fake name of Mandarb, and he kind of giggle snorts at her, because that's also the name of Lan's horse. But, we'll see that Faile can definitely hold her own. And then Leon is back at the White Tower, ballsy enough to visit the Red Aja quarters on her own and announce that 7 Reds are going to be dispatched to find the false dragon Mazrim Taim, thereby, like I said, making way for Elida to move into the vacated sitter/Tyus position. And then we go back to the Two Rivers, where Perrin gives a very rousing, inspirational speech to the villagers, convincing them that they need to unite and stick together to protect each other and fight against the Trollocs instead of just being easy pickings. And they immediately are like, okay, what should we do? And turn to Perrin as a leader and to form a plan. And all I could think is, yes, this is how it's done, Rings of Power. You want a scene of a villager giving a rousing, inspirational speech to the other villagers to band together and fight against seemingly impossible odds? This is how you do it. Suck it, Rings of Power. Again, feeding us book fans so well. We end off with the Matt Quarterstaff fight scene / beat down, where he kicks Gowan and Galad's ass with a quarterstaff. Side note, I love that they made a point of making Gowan and Galad fuckboys in the show, literally. So that is just that much more vindicating and satisfying when Matt lays them out and just literally KOs Gowan, especially after Galad was literally over here trying to white knight for Nynaeve out of nowhere. Matt says the thing. Like I said, these whole first 3 episodes were just me fangirling as a book reader, being like, they're doing the thing! They said the thing! So I hope you enjoyed me ranting, raving, and fangirling about these first 3 episodes, because they're really pulling it together and pulling out all the stops, and I'm really happy to see that Wheel of Time is number 3 on like the most popular, most watched Amazon Prime shows right now. So let's keep it up, let's keep watching, and let's keep moving it up and show Amazon that we support this show and that they need to keep supporting it in turn, because if they're gonna pick a fantasy show to back, it needs to be this one. And like I said in my last one, if you like Rings of Power and if you liked Dune Prophecy, may I interest you in this Wheel of Time? We have the same actress, They're pulling out all the stops, and as I have said, they're getting the best and brightest in the industry, both on and off and behind the camera and behind the scenes, to come and work on this show, and it really shows, no pun intended. But after that, Matt decides to accompany the girls to Tanchico, as we had been predicting and seeing from the few like leaks and things. Going to Tanchico with them and not Ruidian with Rand. They've been teasing us that we are still gonna get his storyline play out with the Red Doorway, which then they fucking better. If he doesn't somehow gain access to the one in the tower since he's leaving, we know there's like a collection of artifacts, including the other half of the male Adam in Tanchico, which might include the doorway, and he'll go through it there. I liked the little brief interaction again between Perrin and Fael at his forge, where she reveals that her name is Fael, which means falcon, and that hunting is in my blood, because it shows that like he's a wolf but she's a falcon, so like she's also a hunter and a predator who's gonna get what she wants. So yeah, I love to see some predator for predator romance blossoming between them already. Then all I can say after that is that y'all did not have to make me pity Leandrin like that. After we see that really emotional scene with her there and get some hints as to her origins and like why she is the way she is and why she may have chosen the path that she did, we do get the male Adam reveal, and that their plan is to try to collar the Dragon Reborn himself, and not only that, that Moghedien is there lurking softly in the shadows and overhears that plan. Definitely also curious to see if they're gonna tie those two plot lines in together, because when I did my Shadow Rising breakdown, both, Leandrin and the Black Aja and Moghedien are in Tanchico, but they're not conspiring together. She's not meeting with them. She doesn't really like tell them what to do or anything. They're just kind of both there working toward the same ends. So I'll be curious to see if they will switch that up a little bit in the show and have Moghedien like overtly communicate with the Black Aja in Tanchico. Let me know what you guys think of some of my thoughts, theories, and predictions, and I'm gonna leave this one off here. Until next time, stay classy, watcher.